Hello, hello, hello. Okay, so I I don't know how this is gonna go, and we shall see. But I just spent like almost 2 hours recording and live streaming on Twitch, thinking that it was going great, and like everything was fine. I tried it on my computer. I spent like last night creating overlays and like updating everything, and it totally just disappeared. And I did all that, but this morning like I couldn't get it to work on my computer, so I just went to my phone because like whatever. But yeah, they totally like, I say they because like it just doesn't make sense. Like 17 minutes into my hour and almost 2 hours stream, it stopped recording on Twitch, and I've never had that problem before. I've never had that problem before. So let's see how it goes on TikTok. I think unfortunately though, it doesn't let me record. I'm gonna have to figure out if it's going to, because I think it's like a certain time period that you have to record under to be able to save the video. So we'll see. But I'm sorry, I'm not going to be accepting any lives together because I'm going to be reading a document, a CIA document. It's about this document came out June 9th, 1983. It's analysis and assessment of the gateway process. Okay, there's the first page that talks about kind of the overview. I'm going to set you guys up, so give me a second here. Talks about the overview, so we're going to go over that first, and then we'll get into the actual documentation. And it is just, like it says, the analysis, so it's not like the government did this research, somebody else did this research, and we'll talk about that, and you can find that research and all the stuff that they have actually on Google. And I've been watching the videos, and I've had some interesting experiences, and so I suggest you check out the Monroe Institute. You can find that pretty easily on YouTube if you want to go and watch those videos. I suggest doing a little research yourself on it before doing it, just because there are some warnings and things that they want you to just be aware of. And I agree with them. Truthfully, I agree with them based on what I've learned so far. So let's get into this documentation. I hope you enjoy this weird little thing that I'm about to read. I've now read it almost twice, but that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Sorry for any mistakes. I'm going to do my best though, so stick with me. 1. You tasked me to provide an assessment of the gateway experience in terms of its mechanics and ultimate practicality. As I set out to fulfill that tasking, it soon became clear that in order to assess the validity and practicality of the process, I need to do enough supporting research and analysis to fully understand how and why the process works. Frankly, sir, that provide to be an extremely involved and difficult business. Initially, based on the conversations with a physician who took the gateway training with me, I had resource to the biomedical models developed in Itzhak Bentov, Itzhak Bentov, to obtain information concerning the physical aspects of the process. Then I found it necessary to delve into various sources for informative concerning quantum mechanics in order to be able to describe the nature and functioning of human consciousness. I had to be able to construct a significantly valid and reasonably lucid model of how consciousness functions under the influence of the brain hemisphere synchronization technique employed by Gateway. Once this was done, the next step involved resources to theoretical physics in order to explain the character of the time-space dimension and the means by which expanded human consciousness transcends it in achieving Gateway's objectives. Finally, I again found it necessary to use physics to bring the whole phenomenon of out-of-body state into the language of physical science, to remove the stigma of its occult connotations and put it in a frame of reference suited to objective assessments. 2. I began the narrative of briefly profiling the fundamental biomechanical factors affecting such relative techniques as hypnosis, biofeedback, and transcendental meditation, so that their objectives and mode of functioning could be compared in the reader's mind with the Gateway experience as the model of its underlying mechanics was developed. Additionally, the introductory material is useful in supporting the conclusions of the paper. I indicated that at times these related techniques may provide useful entry points to accelerate movement into the Gateway experience. Niels Bohr, the renowned physicist, once responded to his son's complaints about the obtuse nature of certain concepts in physics by saying, quote, "You are not thinking, you are merely being logical," end quote. The physics of altered human subconsciousness deals with some conceptualization that are not easily grasped or visualized exclusively in the concept of ordinary left brain linear thinking. So to borrow Dr. Bohr's mode of expression, parts of this paper will require not only logic, but a touch of right brain intuitive insight to achieve a complete, comfortable grasp of the concept involved. Nevertheless, once that is done, I am confident that their construction and application will stand up to the test of rational critique. Number 4. Paradoxically, having gone up to the test of rational critique. Number 4. Paradoxically, having gone to the question of the impact of the Gateway experience on common belief systems, I did so because although it was essential to avoid attempting to render an assessment in the context of such system, I felt that it was necessary after having completed the analysis to point out that the resulting conclusions do not do any violence to the fundamental mainstream of either Eastern or Western belief systems. Unless that point is clearly established, the danger exists that some people will reject the whole concept of the Gateway experience in the mistaken belief that it contradicts and is therefore alien to all that they hold to be right and true. Number 5. The study is certainly not designed to be the last word on the subject, but I hope that the validity of its basic structure and the fundamental concepts upon which it is based will make it a useful guide for other USANSCOM personnel who are required to take the Gateway training or work with Gateway materials. This was by Wayne M. McDonald. Okay. So now we're going to get into the actual paper that he wrote or whatever. And I really hope that you can kind of follow along. In my Twitch, I was kind of taking breaks because I was going to like cut up the video, but I have no idea how this is going to come across. like video format. I don't know if I can cut it up. So here we go. The gateway experience, brain hemisphere synchronization in perspective. 1. Introduction. In order to describe the Monroe Institute technique for achieving altered states of consciousness, the gateway experience involving brain hemisphere synchronization or hemisync, the most effective way to begin is to briefly profile the basic mechanics which underlie operations of relative methods such as hypnosis, transcendental meditation, and biofeedback. It is easiest to effectively describe what gateway is by beginning with a short description of those associated techniques that share some common aspects of the gateway experience, but which are nevertheless different. In this way, we can develop a frame of reference at the outside which will provide useful concepts to explain and understand gateway by comparison as we proceed. Okay, so the first one that we're going to talk about here is hypnosis. Yeah. So, number 2, hypnosis. According to theories of psychologist Ronald Stone and the biomedical engineering models of Itzhak Bentov, hypnosis is basically a technique which permits acquisition of direct access to the sensory motor cortex and pleasure centers, a lower cerebral emotional portions and associated pleasure centers of the right side of the human brain following successful disengagement of the stimulus screening function in the left hemisphere of the brain. The left hemisphere of the brain is the self-cognitive, verbal, and linear reasoning component of the mind. It fulfills the function of screening and communicating stimuli by categorizing, assessing, and assigning meaning prior to allowing passage to the right hemisphere of the mind. The right hemisphere, which functions as the non-critical, holistic, nonverbal, and pattern-oriented component of the brain, appears to accept that what the left hemisphere passes to it without question. Consequently, if the left hemisphere can be distracted either through boredom or through reduction to a soporific semi-sleep state, external stimuli, to include hypnotic suggestions, are allowed to pass unchanged into the right hemisphere where they are accepted and acted upon directly. The result may involve an emotional reaction originating in the lower cerebral region, sensory motor responses requiring involvement of the cortex, and so on. Both the sensory and the motor cortex of the right cerebral portion of the brain contain a sequence of points known as the homunculus, which correspond to points in the body. See Exhibit 1, next page. I'll show you that in a second. Stimulation of the corresponding area of the cortex causes intermediate responses in the associated portions of the body. Consequently, induction of the suggestion of the left leg is numb. If it reaches the right hemisphere unchallenged and is referred to the appropriate area of the sensory cortex, will result in an electrical reaction being generated that will induce the feeling of numbness. Similarly, the suggestion that the person is experiencing a general feeling of happiness will begin and well-being would be referred to the appropriate pleasure centers located in the lower cerebral portion of the cortex of the right hemisphere, thereby inducing the suggested feeling of euphoria. Finally, suggestions such as one that informs the hypnotic subject that he enjoys enhanced concentration or powers of memory would be responded to in the right hemisphere by accessing unused information storage capacity normally held in reserve as a result of left hemisphere selection and control processes. This aspect will become significant in the context of the gateway process when attention is given to examining the way that hypnosis may be used to accelerate progress in the early stages of the gateway experience. Okay, let me show you that little thing now that everyone was, can I switch this around easily? I got to flip the camera. Okay, well, this is the diagram that they were talking about. Okay, flip camera. This is it. This is a little thing that I was talking about. Apparently, this is the homunculus. I don't know why there's a foot and a hand and a mouth in your brain. This is supposed to be your brain, apparently. Like, it says, like, white matter here. Pleasure cortexes here, right? I'm assuming this one here is also one here since it's, you know, the same as these. But this is the image that it was suggesting, which is a clearly hand-drawn image of the brain and the understanding. I'm not really sure why he drew it, but it's kind of funny because, you know, it calls it the homunculus, and I just think about anime that I've watched before in the past, Full Metal Alchemist, and the homunculi that are there. I don't know why. I'm not sure if it has anything. You know, TV. Just showing us things like that. Anyways. Number 3. Transcendental meditation. On the other hand, transcendental meditation works in a distinctly different fashion. In this technique, intense and protracted, single-minded concentration on the process of drawing energy up the spinal cord ultimately results in what appears to be creation of acoustical standing waves in the cerebral ventricles, which are then conducted to the gray matter in the cerebral, scroll down, cortex in the right side of the brain. As a result, according to Bentov, these waves, quote, will stimulate and eventually polarize the cortex in such a way that it will tend to conduct a signal along the homunculus, starting from the toes and on up, end quote. The Bentov biomedical model, as described in a book by Lee Sanella, MD, entitled Kundalini Psychosis or Transcendence, states that the standing acoustical waves are the result of the altered rhythm of the heart sounds, which are accustomed by prolonged practice of meditation, and which set up the sympathetic vibration in the walls of the fluid-filled cavities, which compromise the third third and lateral ventricles of the brain. In addition, according to Bentov, quote, The state of bliss described by those whose Kundalini symptoms have completed the full loop along the hemisphere may be explained as a self-stimulation of the pleasure centers in the brain caused by the circulation of a current along the sensory cortex, end quote. Bento allows notes, quote, that most of the described symptoms start on the left side of the body means that it is mostly a development occurring in the right hemisphere, end quote. Although normally a period of meditation involves intense concentration and practice for 5 years or some is required to, quote, bring up the kundalini, end quote. Bento states that exposure to mechanical or acoustical vibrations in the range of 4 to 7 hertz cycles per second for protracted periods may achieve this. That's why I have this. For protracted periods may achieve the same effect. Bento cites as an example, quote, repeated riding in a car whose suspension and seat combination produces the range of vibrations or being exposed for long periods of time to these frequencies caused, for instance, by an air conditioning duct, end quote. He also notes that, quote, the cumulative effect of these vibrations may be able to trigger a spontaneous oh my gosh, I can't speak right now, I'm so sorry. A spontaneous physio kundalini sequence in susceptible people who have a particularly sensitive nervous system, end quote. Whew! Some of these are big words, and it takes me a minute, so I'm sorry, but thank you for sticking there with me. I need water. Okay. This is a lot. And I'm trying so hard. But I think it's because I already spent like an hour doing this that I'm like, damn. This is, I'm really sad that I didn't record it. I'm grumpy. Okay. Anyways. Biofeedback. The third consciousness altered methodology, which will be briefly described, is biofeedback. Biofeedback is somewhat unique in that it actually employs the self-cognitive powers of the left hemisphere to gain access to areas such as the right brain as the lower cerebral, motor and sensory cortex, and assorted pain or pleasure centers, instead of suppressing the left hemisphere as it does in hypnosis, or largely bypass and ignore it as it does in transcendental meditation. Biofeedback teaches the left hemisphere first to visualize the desired result and then to recognize the feelings associated with the experience of successful right hemisphere access to the specific lower cerebral cortex, pain or pleasure or other areas in the manner needed to produce the desired results. Special self-monitoring devices such as digital thermometer are used to inform the left brain when it succeeds in keying the right hemisphere into accessing the appropriate area. Once this is done, the left brain can then repeatedly instruct the right brain to reestablish the pathways involved so as to produce the same external objective measures of success. In this way, the pathways are strengthened and emphasized to such an extent that left brain consciousness is enabled to access appropriate areas in the right brain using a conscious demand mode. For example, if the subject wishes to increase the circulation of the left leg in order to speed up healing, he may concentrate with his left brain on achieving the results while carefully monitoring a digital thermometer connected to the left leg. when the concentrated effort begins to achieve success, the digital thermometer will register an increase in the temperature of the left leg. At the point the subject can mentally, left brain, associate the sensation experienced with the result achieved and can begin to emphasize by memory recall the same process to cause its strengthening by affirming and repetition. In this way, pain can be blocked, healing can be enhanced, malignant tumors can apparently be suppressed and ultimately destroyed. The body's pleasure centers can be stimulated, and a variety of specific psychological results may be achieved. In addition, biofeedback may be used to greatly accelerate achievement of deep meditative states, particularly for beginners who have no experience in meditative techniques and whose progress in the methodology is enhanced through effective visualization and external objective affirmation. Display of the subject's brainwave patterns in a cathode ray tube has proven to be a laboratory validated means by which subjects may quickly learn to place themselves in profoundly relaxed states characterized by the sort of quietude and singularity of mental focus associated with advanced meditation. Hot diggity dog. Oh man. You know, I am loving reading this, but doing it twice in one day is very rough. Like, I feel like I'm saying the words better right now, but like, my brain is like, we just did this. We just read this. Oh, I really hope I can save this recording because I need it. I want it. I want it real bad, and I don't want to have to record this again. Alright. Number 5. Gateway and Hemisync. Now we have briefly profiled the basic mechanics of the principal techniques for altering or expanding consciousness, which share some of the objectives and or methods employed in the gateway experience. We may proceed to focus on what that technique actually involves. Fundamentally, the gateway experience is a training system designed to bring enhanced strengthening, focus, and coherence to the amplitude and frequency of brainwave output between the left and right hemisphere so as to alter consciousness, moving it outside of the physical sphere so as to ultimately escape even the restrictions of time and space. The participants then gains access to the various levels of intuitive knowledge which the universe offers. What differentiates the gateway experience from forms of meditation is its use of the Hemisync technique, which is defined in a monograph by Monroe Institute trainer Melissa Jagger as, quote, a state of consciousness defined when the EEG patterns of both hemispheres are simultaneously equal in amplitude and frequency, end quote. Although Hemisync seems to be a rather rare and of only short duration in ordinary human consciousness, Melissa Jagger states that, quote, audio techniques developed by Bob Monroe can induce and sustain Hemisync with the intuitive basic focus 3 tapes, end quote. She also notes that the, quote, studies conducted by Elmer and Alice Green at the Menninger Foundation have shown that a subject with 20 years of training in Zen meditation could consistently establish Hemisync at will, sustaining it for over 15 minutes, end quote. Dr. Stuart Twemlow, a psychiatrist and a research associate of the Monroe Institution, reports that, quote, in our studies of the effect of the Monroe tape system on the brainwaves, we have found that the tapes encourage the focusing of brain energy. It can be measured as with a light bulb in watts into a narrower and narrower frequency band. This focusing of energy is not unlike the yoga concept of the pointedness, which we may translate in Western terms as a single-mindedness, end quote. Dr. Twemlow goes on to observe that as the individual gets into the tape beyond focus 3, quote, there is a gradual increase in brainwave size such as it. There is a gradual increase in brain wave size, which is a measure of brain energy or power. Why is it I'm struggling to talk? Please stop. Thank you. Woo! I need a break, apparently. It is kind of rough. Try reading out loud. Do it. Read to kids. It's going to be easier. But try reading like an actual government documentation with like these large ass words that they definitely don't need to be using, but they are anyways. It's a little rough. Especially since this isn't something I do normally. Okay. Going on. Number 6. Lamp versus laser. Melissa Jagger uses a metaphor to help clarify the process involved in the use of hemisync in the gateway experience. She points out that the human mind in its natural state may be linked to an ordinary lamp which expends energy in the form of both heat and light, but in a chaotic, incoherent way, which diffuses its energy over a wide area of rather limited depth. On the other hand, the human mind under the discipline of hemisync acts after the fashion of laser beam, which produces a disciplined stream of light. The stream of energy is projected with total coherence of both frequency and amplitude, such as the surface area of a laser beam contains billions of times the concentrated energy found in a similar surface area on the sun. Gateway assumes that once the frequency and amplitude of the human brain are rendered coherent, it is possible to begin accelerating both so that the human mind is soon resonating at even higher vibrational levels. The mind can then bring itself into synchronization with more sophisticated and rarefied energy levels in the universe. The mind then operates at these increasingly rarefied levels, is assumed to be capable of processing the information thus received through the same fundamental matrix by which it makes sense of ordinary physical sensory input to achieve meaning in a cognitive context. Such meaning is usually perceived visually in the form of symbols, but may also be perceived as astonishing flashes of holistic institution, or even in the form of scenarios involving both visual and aerial perceptions, mechanics by which the mind exercises the consciousness function will be addressed in more detail later in the paper. Someone said hi, you're so cute. That's funny. Okay. We're about where I was last time. I'm getting like excited, but I'm also like, I just want it to be done. I just wish I could read faster. Read more better. Can I read more better? Yeah, let me read more better, please. And thank you. Okay. Number 7, frequency following response. To achieve synchronization of brain hemisphere, the hemisync technique takes advantage of a phenomenon known as frequency following response, FFR, which means that if a subject hears a sound produced at a frequency with which emulates one of those associated with the operation of the human brain, the brain will try to mimic the same frequency patterns by adjusting its brainwave output. Therefore, if the subject is in a fully awake state but hears sound frequency which approximates brainwave output at the theta level, the subject's brain will endeavor to alter its brainwave pattern from the normal beta to the theta level. Since the theta level is associated with sleep, the subject concerned may progress from a fully awake to a sleep state, provided that he does not consciously resist. As the brain strives to entrain its wave frequency output with the one which the person hears, since these brainwave frequencies are outside of the spectrum of sound which can be heard in pure form by the human ear, Hemisync must produce them based on another phenomenon known as the brain's capacity for deducing beat frequencies. If the human brain is exposed to one frequency in the left ear, which is 10 Hz below another audible frequency played in the right ear, rather than hearing either of the two audible frequencies, the brain chooses to hear the difference between them, the beat frequency, thus availing itself. Hold on, I just scrolled down. There it is. Okay. Thus availing itself of FFR phenomenon and using the technique of beat frequency. The gateway system uses Hemisync and other audio techniques employing the FFR phenomenon to introduce a variety of frequencies which are played at a virtually subliminal, marginally audible level. The objective is to relax the left hemisphere of the brain, place the physical body in a virtual sleep state, and bring the left and right hemisphere into coherence under conditions designed to promote the production of ever higher amplitude and frequency of brain output. Audible and perhaps subliminal suggestions by Bob Monroe accompany the various brainwave frequencies, which are sometimes rolled in together with other sounds such as sea surf to mask the sound frequencies were desirable. In this way, Gateway endeavors to provide the subjects with tools by which he may alter his consciousness based on his own volition over time through the repetitive use of the tapes, so as to access via intuitive means new categories of information not available to ordinary consciousness. Damn. I hope you guys are understanding. If you don't, that's perfectly fine. I will be doing a lot of research and videos and stuff like that and putting it out, so just hang in there with me. Okay, number 8, role of resonance. However, brain coherence through entrainment to beat frequencies introduced via stereo headphones is only part of the reason why the Gateway system works. It is also designed to achieve the physical quietude characteristics of deep transcendental meditative stage, which brings about a complete alteration of fundamental resonance patterns associated with the sound frequency produced by the human body. Yoga, Zen, or transcendental meditation, if practiced long enough, will produce a change in the sound frequency with which the human heart resonates throughout the entire body. According to Bentov, this change in resonance results from elimination of what the medical professionals call the bifurcation echo. I don't know if I'm saying that right. So that the sound of the heartbeat can move synchronously up and down the circulatory system in harmonious resonance approximately 7 times a second. Bentov describes the role played by the bifurcational echo as follows, quote, when the left ventricle of the heart of the heart ejects blood, the aorta, being elastic, balloons out just beyond the valve and causes a pressure pulse to travel down along the aorta. When the pressure pulse reaches the bifunctional in the lower abdomen, which is where the aorta forks in two to go into the legs, part of the pressure pulse rebounds and starts traveling up the aorta. If in the meantime the heart ejects more blood and now pressure pulse is traveling down, these two pressure points will eventually collide somewhere along the aorta and produce an interference pattern, end quote. By placing the body in sleep-like state, the gateway tapes achieve the same goal as meditation in that it places the body in such a profoundly relaxed state that the bifunctional echo slowly fades away as the heart lessens the force and frequency with which it pushes blood into the aorta. The result is a regular rhythmic sine wave pattern, a sound which echoes throughout the body and rises up into the head in sustained resonance. The amplitude of the sine wave pattern, when measured with a sensitive seismograph tape instrument, is about 3 times the average of the sound volume produced by the heart when it's operating normally. I don't know what a seismograph tape instrument is, but I'm sure somebody does. And they use that to essentially record the heart. And yeah, which is cool. I think that's cool. I need to finish my breakfast, sorry. And then I'll finish reading. I just need a break. This is about where I was on Twitch before I realized that it stopped recording. And I just don't know why, because it said I was live, and it said that my, you know how it shows how well your internet and all that's doing and how well it's connecting? It showed that it was green. It was doing fine. So, but like it didn't record, it wasn't showing on Twitch. So I'm not really sure why, but yeah, that's why I'm here on TikTok now, and I'm hoping it's going to record this and I can use this video on YouTube. We shall see. We shall see. Alright. By the way, this is like 29 pages and we're 8 pages in right now. So I would be surprised if any one person sat through this whole thing, but I would be impressed. So, number 9, brain stimulation. Bento's biomechanical model. I'm gonna move it this way. Biomechanical model shows that the resonance is of considerable importance since it is directly transmitted to and impacts upon the brain. The resulting vibration is received and transmitted into the brain itself via the fluid-filled third and left ventricles located above the brain system. An electromagnetic pulse is then generated, which stimulates the brain to raise the amplitude and frequency of the brain output. Just as Dr. Twimlow observed in his research on the effects of the hemisync tapes, also the brain is contained in a tight membrane called the dura, which is, in turn, cushioned by a thin layer of fluid located between it and the skull. As the coherent resonance produced by the human heart in a state of profound relaxation reaches the fluid layer surrounding the brain, it sets up a rhythmic pattern in which the brain moves up and down approximately 0.005 to 0.01 millimeters in a continuous pattern. The self-reinforced character of resonant behavior accounts for the body's ability to sustain this movement despite the minimal level of energy involved. In this way, the entire body, based on its own micromotion, functions as a tuned vibrational system which transfers energy in a range of between 6.8 and 7.5 hertz into the Earth's ionic sphere cavity, which itself resonates at about 7 to 7.5 hertz. Of this process, Bentov states, this is occurring at a very long wavelength of about 40,000 km, or just about the perimeter of the planet. In other words, the signal from the movement of our bodies will travel around the world in about 1/7 of a second through the electronic field in which we are embedded. Such a long wavelength knows no obstacles, and its strength does not attenuate much over large distances. Naturally, it will go through just about anything. Naturally, it will go through just about anything. Metal, concrete, water, and the fields making up our bodies. It is the ideal medium for conveying a telepathical signal. Consequently, the gateway process is designed to rather rapidly induce a state of profound calm within the nervous system and to significantly lower body pressure to cause the circulatory system, skeleton, and all other physical organ systems to begin vibrating coherently at approximately 7 to 7.5 cycles per second. The resulting resonance sets up a regular repetitive sound wave which propagates its consonance while the electric static field of the earth. Anyways. Number 10. Energy entrainment. Energy entrainment. As the body is turned into a coherent, oscillar, vibrating in harmony with the surrounding electronic medium, the specific exercises include in the gateway tapes enjoy the participants to build up the energy field surrounding his body, presumably by using energy from the Earth's field, which the body is now in training because of its ability to resonate with it. This puts the body's energy field into homogeneity with its surrounding environment. Homogeneity, I don't know what that is. With its surrounding environment, and promotes movement of the seat of consciousness into the surrounding environment. Partly in response to the fact that the two electromagnetic medians are now a single energy continuum. Thus, the same process which moves the brain into focused coherence at steadily higher levels of frequency and amplitude so as to entrain analogous frequencies in the universe for data collection also promotes enhancement of bodily energy levels to a point adequate to permit the subject to experience an out-of-body movement when he is ready to do so. More will be said about this topic later. In addition, by resonating with the Earth's electromagnetic sphere, the human body creates a surprisingly powerful carrier wave to assist the mind in communication actively with other human minds similarly tuned. I hope you understood that. If you don't, it's okay. Number 11. Consciousness and energy. Before our explanations can proceed any farther, it is essential to define mechanism. Why am I struggling to read mechanism? Okay. Before our explanation can proceed any farther, it is essential to define the mechanism by which the human mind exercises the function known as consciousness, and to describe the way in which that consciousness operates to deduce meaning from the stimuli which it receives. To do this, we will first consider the fundamental character of the material world in which we have our physical existence in order to accurately perceive the raw stuff with which our consciousness must work. The first point which needs to be made is the two terms, matter and energy, tend to be misleading if taken to indicate two distinctly different states of existence in the physical world that we know it. Indeed, if the term matter is taken to mean solid substances as opposed to energy, which is understood to mean a force of some sort, then the use of the former is entirely misleading. Science now knows that both the electrons which spin in the energy field located around the nucleus of the atom and the nucleus itself are made up of nothing more than oscillating energy grids. Solid matter in the strict construction of the term simply does not exist. Rather, atomic structure is composed of oscillating energy grids surrounded by other oscillating energy grids, which orbits at extraordinarily high speeds. In this book, Stalking the Wind Pendulum, Itsuki Bento gives the following figures. The energy grid which composes the nucleus of the atom vibrates at approximately 10 to the 22nd hertz, which means 10 following by 22 zeros. At 70 degrees Fahrenheit, an atom oscillates at the rate of 10 to the 15 hertz. An entire molecule composed by a number of atoms bound together in a singular energy field vibrates in the range of 10 to 9 hertz. A live human cell vibrates at approximately 10 to 3 hertz. The point to be made is that the entire human being, brain, consciousness, and all is like the universe which surrounds him, nothing more, nothing less than an extraordinarily complex system of energy fields. This so-called states of matter are actively variances in the state of energy, and human consciousness is a function of the interaction of energy in two opposite states, motion versus rest, in a manner described in the following paragraph. Okay. You guys sticking with me? You understanding? I hope you are, because I didn't really get it the first time. Number 12, holograms. Energy creates stories and retrieves meaning in the universe by projecting or expanding at certain frequencies in a three-dimensional mode that creates a living pattern called holograms. The concept of holograms can be most easily understood by using an example cited by Bentov, in which he asks the reader to visualize a bowl full of water into which 3 pebbles are dropped. As the ripples created by the simultaneous entry of the 3 pebbles radiate outwards toward the rim of the bowl, Bento further asks the reader to visualize what the surface of the water is suddenly flash frozen, so that the ripple pattern is preserved instantaneously. The ice is removed, leaving the 3 pebbles still laying at the bottom of the bowl. Then the ice is exposed to a powerful, coherent source of light, such as a laser. The result will be a 3-dimensional model or representation of the position of the 3 pebbles suspended in mid-air. Holograms are capable of encoding so much detail that, For example, it is possible to take a holographic projection of a glass of swamp water and view it under magnification to see small organisms not visible to the naked eye. When the glass of water itself is examined, the whole concept of the holograph, despite its scientific implications, has only been known to the physicists, since the underlying mathematic principles were worked out by Dennis Gabor in 1947. He later won a Nobel Prize for his work. The understanding of holograms has been around since 1947. That's insane to think about. Laboratory demonstration of Gabor's work only occurs years later following inventions of the laser, as biologist Lyle Watson explains, quote, "The purest kind of light available to us that produced by a laser, which sends out a beam in which all the waves are of one frequency, like those made by an ideal pebble in a perfect pond. When two laser beams touch, they produce an interference pattern of light and dark ripples that can be recorded in a photographic plate. And if one of the beams, instead of coming directly from the laser, is reflected first off an object, such as a human face, the resulting pattern will be very complex indeed, but it can still be recorded. The record will be a hologram of the face." Hologram your face. Okay. We are 10 pages in. So, congratulations for making it this far. Remember, there's 29. Number 13. The past encodes the whole. Of future importance, it is the fact that even if we dropped our frozen hologram off the ripple pattern on the floor and broke it into a number of pieces, each individual piece would recreate the entire holographic image by itself. The smaller the piece, the fuzzier and more distorted would be the resulting holographic projection, but the fact remains that a whole projection would nonetheless be made. The key to creating any hologram is the energy in motion must interact with energy in a state of rest, non-motion. The foregoing example, the pebbles represent energy in motion, while the water, before it's agitated by the pebbles, represents energy at a stage of rest. To activate, or in effect to perceive, the meaning of a holograph, energy, in this case, a coherent light source such as a laser beam, must be passed through the interference pattern generated by interaction between the moving energy and the energy at rest. The simple example given by Bentov, this requirement was fulfilled by holding the frozen interference pattern in front of the coherent light to project the three-dimensional holographic image, its meaning, into spaces, as Marilyn Ferguson, editor of the Brain/Mind Bulletin, tells us, quote, "Another feature of a hologram is its efficiency. Billions of bits of information can be stored in a tiny space. The pattern of the holographic photograph is stored everywhere on this planet." Already being stored. I mean, truthfully, we already know water has memory, right? Like, so it's like, if you're, 90-some% water, and you, you're storing all your information inside your body. It's crazy. And you will become a hologram. And someone is watching you right now, I bet. I don't know if that's true, but I assume. Number 14, the consciousness matrix. The universe is composed of intersecting energy fields, some at rest and some in motion. It is, in and of itself, one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity. According to the theories of Carl Pribram, a neuroscientist at Stanford University, and David Bohm, a physicist at University of London, the human mind is also a hologram which attunes itself to the universal hologram by the medium of energy exchange, thereby deducing meaning and achieving the state which we call consciousness. With respect to state of expanding or altered consciousness, such as gateway use, the process operates in the following way. As energy phases through the various aspects of the universal hologram and is perceived by the electrostatic fields, electrostatic fields, such as fields which comprise the human mind, the holographic image being conveyed are projected upon those electrostatic fields of the mind and are perceived or understood to the extent that the electrostatic field is operating at a frequency and amplitude that can harmonize with and therefore read the energy current wave pattern passing through it. Changes in the frequency and amplitude of the electrostatic field, which compromises the human mind, determines the configuration and hence the character of the holographic energy matrix, which the mind projects to intercept meaning directly from the holographic transmissions of the universe. Then, to make the sense of what the holographic image is saying to it, the mind proceeds to compare the image just received with itself. Specifically, it does this by comparing the image received with the parts of its own hologram, which constitutes memory. By registering differences in geometric form and in energy frequency, the consciousness perceives and then it asks about, it shows if there's like a picture. I'll show that to you. As psychologist Keith Floyd puts it, quote, "Contrary to what everyone knows is so, it may not be the brain that produces consciousness, but rather consciousness that creates the appearance of the brain." That's how I felt when I read that the first. I read that like multiple times. I was like, 15. Brain in phase. The consciousness process in most easily envisaged. I think this is misspelled. Envisioned if we picture of the holographic input with a three-dimensional grid system superimposed over it such that all the energy patterns contained within can be described in terms of three-dimensional geometry using mathematics to reduce the data into two-dimensional form. Bentov states that scientists subject that the human mind operates on a simple binary go/non-go system, as do all digital computers. Therefore, once it superimposes a three-dimensional matrix over holographic information, it wishes to interpret and reduce what information mathematically to two-dimensional form. It can completely process it using its fundamental binary system, just as a computer made by the hand of a man can process volumes of data and make various comparisons between the data and information stored in its digital memory. Our minds operate in the same way, perceiving by comparison only. Bentove states that the proposition this way, quote, "Our whole reality is constructed by consistently making such comparisons. Whenever we perceive something, we always perceive differences only. In states of expanded consciousness, the right hemisphere of the human brain, in its holistic, nonlinear, and nonverbal mode of functioning, acts as a primary matrix or receptor for the holographic input, while the operating in phases of coherence with the right brain, the left hemisphere provides the secondary matrix through its binary, computer-like method of functioning to screen further the data by comparison and reduce it to a discrete two-dimensional form." Number 16, evaluation. To the extent of the gateway success in bringing about a reinforcement and energy matrix of the mind, it succeeds in expanding or altering human consciousness so that it can perceive without resources to the intersection of the physical sense, which that evermore of the universal hologram, not of course accessible by sense perception, can ultimately be perceived and understood. Marilyn Ferguson has written that the theories of Pribram and Boham appear to account for all transcendental experiences, paranormal events, and even normal perception oddities. She goes on to say of Pribram, quote, "Currently he is possessing a startling, all-encompassing model that is generating considerable excitement among those intrigued by the mystery of human consciousness. His holographic model marries brain research to theoretical physicians. It accounts for normal perception and simultaneously takes the paranormal and transcendental experiences out of the supernatural by explaining them as a part of nature. Like certain strange discoveries of quantum physics, the radical reorientation of these theories suddenly makes sense of paradoxical sayings of mystics throughout the ages." Number 17, self-cognition. To complete our outline of the process by which the mind achieves and exercise consciousness, we must also describe the mechanism which accounts for the aspects of human thought that differentiates it from the consciousness of plants or animals, i.e. self-cognition. Humans not only know, but they know that they know. They are able to monitor the process of their own thinking and maintain an awareness of it. Moreover, they can conduct a comparative assessment, evaluating the functioning of their thought process against various objective standards that they have adopted. Human consciousness can do this because it has the capacity to duplicate aspects of its own hologram, project them out, perceive the projection, put it through comparison with memory aspects where its evaluation standards of measure are stored, of its own hologram and measure or sense the difference using three-dimensional geometry and then binary, go, non-go, pulse, to yield verbal cognition about the self. That's crazy. Okay. We're on 13 now. I skipped past the image of conscious energy grid that, like it said, because to be honest, all it is like a head with like a square going this way, a square going this way, a square, like it's like two linear, like flat squares, you know. It just shows. So I'll just skip that. There's no reason. It's weird. I can't believe. Guys. There's 16 pages. And there's technically a missing page that I have to read, and I haven't gotten a chance to read yet, and I've been wanting to read. And I really want to finish this so I can read it. But I am a bit worn out, and thinking about reading another 16 pages, 17 pages is kind of a lot. So I might take a break and see if this recorded and if I can save it, and then I'll be back later. Okay, let's see.